Okay, we're going live. Let's see. You're live. It doesn't look live, but I guess we are. We are live. Hello, everybody. I've turned the microphone down just a little bit because it looked to me like it might be over-modulating. Welcome, everybody, to our Thursday evening live stream. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, and welcome to our weekly Thursday evening U.S. Mountain Time. It's now 01:45 UTC tomorrow. So some of the people who are the other side of the international date line, including in Europe, are seeing this, I guess, 7 hours before I create it. That's pretty good. It's all artificial intelligence. It figures out what I was going to say and says it. Anyway, welcome to the live stream. The weather here is 24 degrees outside, and barometer is high and rising, 30.08 and rising. The TV keeps talking about us getting blasted with snow, but we are not. We've gotten very little. Yesterday, or was it the day before, we had very strong winds up into the 40-mile-an-hour range, which is really strong for us. And we got a little dusting of snow, and then the wind blew it all everywhere and went away. So we could use more snow so that we'll have a good snowpack this year. It's been a while since we've had a snowpack heavy enough that it's going to take the county a long time to clear the roads. Ouray County is kind of a summer county. There are lots and lots of rugged Jeep roads up high in the mountains. And I used to do them on my motorcycle, a little Yamaha dirt bike. I now have a Jeep, no longer have the dirt bike, but haven't been up there recently. If you know, when we get visitors, I'll take somebody up there and show them around. And in any event, we're getting around just fine. We've got a Subaru and a Jeep. So let's see what has happened this week. I had a funny little run-in with an eye problem. I had Bell's palsy once, and it still affects this eye. This eye doesn't open quite all the way, but it opens enough for the entire pupil to be open, which is all I can ask for, you know, at this point. I knew Bell's palsy was coming on because my dad had had it, and this was quite a few years ago. And I recognized the symptoms at once. However, I was way up by Crawford on the motorcycle. And so I called my doctor and hightailed it to the doctor. It took 2 hours to get there. And he put me on medication to stop the swelling. The facial nerves come out of little holes in here. And if they swell for any reason, it crimps down on the nerve. But anyway, that's about all I have left of that. That was quite exciting. I've got some pictures of my dad with his Bell's palsy, half his face just hanging down. It went away after a while. So anyway, I had a little eye infection. And you know, when you go tell the doctor that, oh, my pupils are of a different size and I can't focus with this eye and stuff like that, they get all excited. They're going, oh boy, all the tests we can run. We can make a lot of money on this. So they did, and finally my ophthalmologist decided it was just a run-of-the-mill eye infection, and so he's giving me some antibiotic drops, and they're taking care of it. I feel much better. Things are much better than they were. Okay, let's see. We've got Jack Ripa, WH6AJM. I'm going to turn this off. I'm getting random messages here. Um, you know, my extended family is quite large, and so they're all on Facebook. And when any of them says something, you know, some great grand nephew of mine has a birthday party. Um, the phone starts go ringy dingy here, and I'm, oh well, I'm glad my great grandnephew has a birthday. By the way, one of my grandnephews is an Augie and sometimes watches these, and my sister sometimes drops by here too. One of my 4 sisters. Okay, let's see what we've got. WH6AJM, aloha from Hawaii, Honolulu. Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, hello Dave and all Augies from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it is -6 below. Woo! With 14 inches of snow, the blizzard is ending. Reed, AB8AS, good evening Dave and all Augies from Barboursville, West Virginia, where it was 79 degrees today. Went out and activated a POTA park. Fun. Yeah, we had a sort of broken in half country there. The part of it was very, very warm, and the other part of it was very, very cold. Where I grew up in Southern California, they've been having snow out there. In the San Bernardino Mountains, which I've spent a great deal of time in, actually has a blizzard warning. So that should be interesting. Very interesting. California is, except in the Sierra Nevada or whatever, California, the lower counties, Los Angeles and so on, are simply not set up for snow. All the foundations, a lot of the foundations for the newer housing are just slabs. And the water pipe comes up next to it, and then when they build the house around it, the water pipe comes up and goes into the house. And of course, once in every 10 years, that thing's going to freeze. And so, crazy. But thank you for activating POTA. That gives us an opportunity to have some fun on HF. Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave, and all Augies worldwide, in 5 KVO from the hill country of South Texas, currently 68. Let's see, Chris K0BLU, hello from the winter wonderland of St. Cloud, Minnesota, having received 14 inches of snow. We saw some stuff on the TV this evening about that area up there. Looks like a lot of power outages and stuff like that. John Beckham, good evening, Dave, and 73s from Northeast Florida. Michael Burns is .m. That's an abbreviation I don't know. It's probably some internet thing. Eddie K6SDW, snow coming from Sacramento to Ridgway, Colorado. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we see the storms. They're all lined up off the Alaskan coast and ready to come in. Edward Cunningham, hello, Dave and everyone. 84 degrees here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Hot and humid in February. John Beckham, the weather will be in the 80s in Florida tomorrow. Yeah, wild. Optical Man Jeff, we have been stuck in our home for 2.5 days. Great time to do HF. Yes. James McDonough, all right. Dave, watching from England. I just signed up as a patron for £2 a month. Hope this helped. It does, James. Thank you very much for that. And you'll get a thank you note in the email for that too. Ralph, KI5NUK, says howdy from North Texas. Probably warm there too. 3 Henry 21, hello Dave and fellow Augies from Bethel Island, California, which is in the Sacramento Delta region. Light rain, strong winds, and freeze warning here. Oh boy, and there's a lot of rain that's been around there, so that area is prone to flooding. So, John Mills, hi Dave, and all from the Canary Islands. It's almost 2 a.m. here, which would be UTC then. 2 a.m. here, and the temp is 11°C. Let's just look up here and see what. See. In Fahrenheit. 35.6, so still a little bit above zero, but quite cold. And of course you have the fogs over there and stuff that can be really chilly. I remember I was in London one time, and I was in central London and was walking across a big park, and you could see these sort of clouds. They weren't very high off the ground, and they were very ill-formed. They just kind of faded into the background. And one would move over and it would rain, and then it would move on. And it was weird. It would rain, not rain, rain, not rain. Very different from what I grew up with in Los Angeles. Okay, so the Canary Islands. I hope your volcanoes are behaved over there. Mike McBride, KJ6MGV. Good evening, Dave and Augies worldwide. Quick question. For good ground, how many ground rods should I use buried horizontally? 2 vertical feet deep and about Y is near 6 feet apart. 2 is the answer. If you think of a ground rod going down 8 feet, and there's a cylinder around it about 6 feet wide, you've got this cylinder that's about 12 feet across, okay? And that is the effective ground. If you put another ground rod inside of that, you're not really adding anything. So you want to put a subsequent ground rod about 2 ground rod lengths away, and then that's a good additional ground. Okay, now you can, if you put the ground rods under the surface, if you can only get down a couple feet, put them down there, okay, and tie them together, and then you have half cylinders underneath each, and between the 2 of them you've got the equivalent of a ground. And this is also how an oofer ground works. When you think about it, concrete is rock. And so if you put in a very long piece of rebar, kind of diagonally across there, pour concrete over it, then have that stick up. That's what's called an oofer ground, U-F-E-R. And that sounds kind of goofy, but there really was a guy by the name of Oofer, and he had a problem. After the war, they were trying to set up some bases, training bases in New Mexico and Arizona, and they've got this problem over there with poor ground. Really, when you think about it, rock on top of rock is ground. Not very good ground, but ground. And so if you run that piece of rebar sideways in there, you have a pretty good ground, and they did some studies on it. And the name of the guy who did the studies was somebody Oofer. U-F-E-R was his last name, and it's still there. Let's see. Okay, how many ground rods? That's so 2. 2 would be fine. Have them opposite each other. Putting them at 90-degree angles isn't going to gain you anything. So just 2. That's all you need. Tommy Helton, KQ4AHR. Good evening, Dave, and everyone from Alabama, where it's nice and warm. DB Ghosts. Hi, Dave. Glad to see you and hear you. Windy here in Tombstone, Arizona, but not as bad as 71-mile-an-hour winds yesterday. Wow. K9UFP. Yeah, we got some real high winds. I don't know if this thing, let's see, wind, high, low, wind, 22. It just does in the last few days. Some of the things like rain and so on, it'll give you daily, monthly, and yearly and stuff like that. I used to have a little laptop computer connected to this and then connected to the internet. And it was just going up via FTP. And I finally decided that that was just too risky security-wise, and so I took it out. Okay, hello from Texas, KI5WSD. Hello? Third base. It's very low. Michael Burns, my G5RUSU. Not sure what that means. By the way, a lot of people talk about a G5RV as being 102 feet long, fed by ladder line. And that's only half the story. It's 102 feet long with a ladder line matching stub that is of a given length, and then you convert to coax. And that is the G5RV. And so that ladder line, if you extend that ladder line to bring it into the shack to a balun or something, it's not a G5RV anymore. It's just a random length dipole. So if you really want the whole thing, you've got to have that matching stub in there. That's Michael Burns. He comes back. My G5RV suddenly hates tuning on 15. If it'll tune on 40, it should tune on 15. When something goes wrong, usually you can look for a single cause. Okay. Break in coax is the most common, or a break somewhere, in the wind, or where it is connected to the antenna wire. There's an insulator in there. And you can look for water in the coax or something like that. But one thing changed, and you've got to try and find that one thing. And the most common thing would be a break in the coax. Your ground connection came loose, something. But just follow that coax from the back of your transceiver all the way out and check all the connections and everything like that. That's what I would think. Something had to happen. Good morning, Dave, and all Augies. Leo Gustafson, KK7CLY, 24 degrees with wind chill here in Albany, Oregon. Yeah, and I imagine some wind. Dwayne, KO4VNX, got my general in December. Very good. Excited about hitting more than just 2 meters, 70 centimeters. What is a good base station for the multiband newbie? Go to Casler, DCASLER.com / and then the word reference and lowercase. What I have put there, and I'll show you what I have put there, Casler / reference. Okay, moving at lightning speed here. Okay, ham radio answers. This is my website, for better or for worse. A reference station is it's actually reference design. It's exactly that, a design that can be used as a reference for building your own. Not mandatory or even suggested. Now, if you build yourself the reference station, everything is there that you need. From the radio power supply, coax, RF connectors, power distribution, power connectors, antenna grounding, lightning surge protectors, bonding for the grounding, CW straight key, the digital mode software, Okay, and that is the reference station. So when people ask me, what do I recommend? I used to say, well, an HF is very personal choice. But now I just say the Icon 7300. Now, I have to caveat that. Yaesu has a new competitor. The FT, oh gee, I'm going to have to look it up. I think I'm actually going to get one for the station so we can kind of collectively decide if we want to replace what's in the reference station with that. Let us go to Yaesu as a company. Welcome to Yaesu. And HF, it's the FT710. Okay. The FT710 is a new radio. It's all like the ICOM. It is software-defined radio. And this is, Yaesu finally came out with a direct competitor to the 7300. Now, they also, of course, have the 991A, which is a competitor. This is not really fully SDR, but it will do 2 meter and 70 centimeter. Okay, so you can do satellite stuff with this and so on. All right, whereas you cannot with this 710. Now, the 710, I think it's priced directly to compete. Let's see what we get. We'll go to, say, DX Engineering. DX Engineering. DX Engineering.com. And look up the FT. Look up. Where do we look up? Where's their search? There we go. Okay, FT710. Okay. Yaesu FT710. Well, I would hope they would show a picture of it. Here it is. Okay, here it is. It's $1,050. Okay, and it's got this audio speaker system that provides some depth and stuff that they're very proud of. Now, if we look up the ICOM 7300, okay, you can see that Yaesu has undercut it by $50. But they've got a little rebate on it. So Yaesu and ICOM are going to compete. Now, ICOM's technology is now several years old. So you have to kind of make the case that, you know, which do you want? I have the ICOM 7300 right here. When I built or engineered the reference station, I decided that that should be the station I have. And so I put my Yaesu FTDX 3000 up on the shelf, which I do not consider to be a beginner's radio. And I got the ICOM 7300, which I consider to be a radio. It might be a bit much for a beginner, but you'll figure it out pretty quickly. And it's very easy to put into point and shoot mode. So, you know, you really don't have to adjust anything, just use it. And I found it to be a fabulous radio. A fabulous radio. It's the kind of radio that, I mean, you could go all the way probably to getting, you know, half your DXCC and so on, and start dipping your toe into contesting before you decide whether you want to go for a real DX rig or a real contesting rig. Okay, so we're going to have to make that decision. We've got this new radio on the market. Is it something, should we shift to the newer technology, Or are the radios just equivalent? If they're just equivalent, let's stick with the 7300. If they're not equivalent, if there's something more in the Yaesu, then we might move in that direction. Okay, hello from Texas, KI5WSD. Let's see, oh, the G5RV, we got, whoops, somebody's just popped some money into the, let's see, Kevin Cherry has put $20 in there, and thank you very much for that. And Scott KM6NFO has put $20 in the chat revenue and says, thanks, Dave. Best wishes to you and all Augies. Still no snow in Sacktown, Sacramento. Okay. Well, I hope you don't. Okay, so we got the ground rod. Let's see. What is it? Okay. Cornbread asks, what is your thinking on auto antenna switching at the tower? There's two ways. I'm not sure what you mean. You can switch with a little switch down here, and it will cause the switch on the tower to go. Or some antennas that claim automatic band switching are doing no such thing. It's just like a fan dipole. If you've got a fan dipole, there's only one element, two pieces, one element that will resonate on a given band. The others all show high impedance. Okay, and some people call that auto band switching. That's not. That's just a characteristic of the antenna. If you you can pick up band switching units that will read the frequency from your radio and make adjustments on the band and your power amplifier and on the band on your tuner and on the band on your band switch and so on. If you do that, make sure it is well protected. And that includes having a drain hole at the bottom to make sure that condensation in there has a way out. When I was in the service, we had a box that was on the radar outside, and it was exposed to the elements, and it was sealed just as thoroughly as you could get it sealed. And every time the airman would open it, it had water inside. And so I can't remember if it was at my suggestion or someone else's. We put a little 1/8 inch hole in the bottom. Water disappeared because it had a way out. It would come in as the box would cool, and the pressure in there would go down, and it would suck in outside air that was humid. And anyway, okay. So, coax is so expensive that sometimes an antenna switch is nice, but usually what you have on the tower is a multiband antenna. And so you don't need to switch bands. But what a lot of people will do, like if they've got a 35 or 50 foot tower or something like that, they've got the Yagi for 20 and up, but they need something for 30, 40, and 80 or 60. And they'll put up inverted V's off of their tower, at various angles. And then you can either run separate coax to that, or you can put a switch up there. It depends on the length of the run. If the run is, a couple hundred feet, it'd be cheaper to put the switch in. If it's only 100 feet or so, you're talking about $200 worth of coax, and that's, I don't know, you might be better off just running coax up there if it's a little bit smaller. Okay, let's see. Warmer weather in Harmony, North Carolina. How's my plane doing? Well, we found the landing gear legs for the main landing gear, but we're still missing some parts. And it's been so long since I've seen my airplane. I mean, this was October or November last year. And it's a hangar queen. My airplane's a hangar queen. So we're just waiting for parts. The insurance company is going to pay for it. We're just waiting for parts, which is frustrating. Yes, it is frustrating. Okay. Paul VK4 DPC. Hello, greetings from VK land. Trust you are keeping well. I am. Also looking forward to your aviation update. Yeah, I'm still missing some parts. I should go up there and get a list of the parts that I'm missing and list it all for you guys, because maybe one of you knows somebody who's got a RANS aircraft that might have a spare one or whatever. RANS is not as popular as vans, and the two get, and there's an RV somebody, so there's a lot of makers of these airplane kits. And I know the RANS, they're quite a ways behind in their orders, 18 months behind when I last talked to them, which was a little less than a year ago. And they were 4 years behind on finished airplanes, so it takes a while to put them together. And what they're doing now is they will make legacy parts. However, they have to get the right metal, you know. Aluminum isn't aluminum isn't aluminum. There's all different kinds of aluminum. And it's got to be the right aluminum for it to withstand the shocks that it needs to withstand and so on. And so my understanding is they're quite willing to make the part, but they're waiting for the right aluminum. So it's supply chain issues. You know, this thing with the pandemic and all the supply chain issues is going to hang out, I think, for a few years. And then people are, you know, the world is dividing into 3 camps right now. Well, 2, really. There's the democracy camp, the U.S., Europe, and then there's what used to be called the non-aligned nations, like India and so on. But they're kind of lining up behind Russia and China. China is now considered a superpower, whereas Russia, for some reason, isn't. They've got big nuclear weapons, guys. I think they're a superpower. But, and I think this all traces back to the pandemic. I mean, frankly, protecting ourselves from that disease may have been the worst thing we did, because the world came to a stop, and it takes a long time to restart the world. Anyway, okay, from Ottawa, Brent VA3BFW, good evening from Ottawa. Nice to catch a live stream finally. Long-time subscriber. So good to have you. Very much. Lenui Macumbi. Hi, Dave. KC8LJF 74 here in Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. Nice and warm. Don Zed, good evening all from the Twin Cities with less snow than predicted. Only about 18 inches total, currently 7 degrees, heading to -7 overnight. Working on a POTA presentation for our club as I listen. You know, Don, I'd love to see that presentation. If you could send me the charts for that, I'd really appreciate it. And if I want to use them in a video, I'll get back with you and make sure I have permission. Pete Dayton's channel. Dave, you can use a metal roof as a ground plane. Yes, you can. Can I solder radials to my metal or vertical? I would not do that. Lay the radials out on the metal roof, insulated radials, okay, insulated radials, and just lay them out on the roof and let the antenna interact with those, and the metal roof will help. But if you start soldering things to the tin, you can get some very strange kinds of things going on there. So I would recommend, if you're going to mount that thing right on the roof, just lay out 16 or so radials around it, 20 feet, whatever, and go with that. And I think you'll be fine. You don't have to really worry about the metal roof. And it's a vertical, yeah. 50 feet of RG8X hooked up to my antenna. Half of it is wound up in the shop. Will that cause any problems? No, it will not. In fact, it may solve some problems. If any RF coming back down the outside, when it's wound up like that, it acts as a choke for that. The nice thing about coax is everything that's happening with the coax between the transmitter and the antenna happens entirely within the coax. That's the beauty of coax. I give a little of the history of that in my video on why 50 ohms, which is one of my, it's had hundreds of thousands of views. It's not going to snow here in Sacramento, maybe in the lower foothills, Auburn or Placerville. Kevin Cherry, Dave, 80 degrees up here today, got my antenna. And MFJ 2010, that's the reference station, up and running. Seems to be working okay. Now, you use that station and get really used to your radio and used to the bands and used to HF, and then you may want to add an antenna, like a 10-meter dipole, and so on. So you can, try some of the upper bands. But where you are right now, you've got all of 20, all of 10. All of 20, all of 40. And that is a great way to start on HF. So very good. And Kevin, congratulations. And you've got your station up and running. Now get on the air. You got to remember about mic right. Okay. If you screw something up on the radio, let up on the push to talk button. The radio will not shoot back at you. The radio will not electrocute you. Okay? If you mess up too badly, just go to another frequency and try again. Okay? Hams are hams. I mean, we're all hobbyists. There's no such thing as a professional ham. That's a contradiction in terms. If you're in the service and you screw up on the radio, well, yeah, your commander's going to have a chat with you. But and they're not going to fire you for that because they desperately need radio operators. But the thing is, the nice thing about this is that you just try again, okay? And people understand if you're a beginner. Now, if some old guy tells you, you have to do this to be a real ham, ignore that. Run, don't walk to the nearest exit. Okay, forgot to include Falls Church, Virginia, tomorrow much colder. Leo says, thank you, Dave, for your frequent mentions of your hex beam. Mine has been serving me so well. Yes, mine continues to serve me well, too. Stephen Schotter says, I'm working on a permanent setup tower, which is galvanized 1 3/8 chain link top rail. Should I ground the top rail to the same ground rod I'm using with a lightning arrestor for my antenna coax? Steve, this gets into the issue of where do you ground your coax. Now, you will certainly ground it at a ground rod that is right outside your shack, just before the coax comes into the house, and there will be a lightning arrestor there. Now, if you have a tower, and what you're describing here with the top rail is actually what I would call a mast, And I found that I can only put 2 of those top rails together for a total of about 21 feet in height. And you need to guy it. Now, the question is, do you ground the aluminum? And the answer is you can. Yes. Do you put a lightning arrestor there so that it hits a lightning arrestor before it goes over to the house? You can, and many do. Okay? And note that the 2 halves of the mast, if you use those 11-foot poles, the top rail stuff, they fit together mechanically, but they may not bond electrically. So you'd put a piece of wire between them. Note that these are galvanized steel. Okay, copper is a dissimilar metal, and you will get corrosion, but you're going to want to somehow connect those 2 electrically. If you have some galvanized iron wire, that would do it. So yes, you can put one there. I don't. Now, I'm not going to say, do what I say, not what I do. I'm just saying I don't. Okay, but I know others who do it and strongly recommend it. Okay. Let's see here. Where are we? Bad ice storm last night. Oh, we're up here. Okay. I'm sorry. I can't keep up with the comments here. Okay, so forgot to include Falls Church. Thank you for your frequent mention of the hex beam. Working permanent. Yeah. Nice to meet you at Quartz Fest. Very good. Thanks for all the mentoring. Steve, KJ7WJD. I'm going to have to take more selfies when I go to these Hamfests and stuff so I can show them in the videos. I haven't done my Quartz Fest video yet. I am surrounded by video projects. So we saw the Kevin Cherry for the 20 into the chat revenue. RJG. Good evening and 73 from W9 LOT. He is Rob from Glen Ellen, Illinois. Temperature 27. No HF for me. Massive RFI in my area, waiting for utility company to come and look at it. I guess just persist in this. Okay, Dale Smith, hello from N4TAQ Dale in Kissimmee, Florida. Recovering from hamcation. Oh, I wish I could have been there, but it's just too far away for me. So, Leo Gustafson, I purchased a 24-inch monitor. Was considering a TV to couple with the old Dell PC that I'll be using with that MFJ 464 that's in the pipeline. Hope it all works. Same here. And good luck with it. Michael Burns, thank you. Lots of rain and wind. Mike McBride, KJ6MGV. On another note, building a 10 by 12 shed to be my new ham shack. Is there any advantage to having a metal roof versus composite shingles on wood? Possible counterpoise for a roof mounted vertical. I think you're going to, well, put the decision on roofing material is yours. But again, if you put a vertical antenna right on top of the roof, dangle the radials out over the side of it. Better yet, move that vertical away from the shack so that you have less chance of RFI in the shack for that. And if you're going to put a vertical up, you can ground mount it and lay the radials on the ground, or you can elevate it, and then you have to put two tuned radials per band up there, and it gets a little weird. Okay, DJ Jackson says, hello all, Tim Plymell. Hi from KE0OG from Hell, Michigan. I imagine this time of year it might be. I understand that there's like an annual celebration there for the Hellschreiber mode, which is a rare semi-analog, semi-digital mode that was pioneered by the Germans in the 30s. It is a mode that is used in the U.S. occasionally. Okay, it's in the FL Digi software. Okay. Bad ice storm, did not lose power. Good deal. Edward Cunningham, quick question, Dave. When I purchased my home, I buried old chain link fence under new sod in my backyard. Well, you may be able to use that as ground, or certainly will enhance the ground, but it will rust eventually. The problem is soil is corrosive, and you get a chemical thing going on. You can stop that. You'd have to get with somebody in the boating world, because you put a cathode out, or is an anode, I can't remember, but what you want to do is keep the soil from de-electroplating the zinc on that stuff and use a sacrificial anode, because what it will do, it's actually taking the anode material and plating the fence stuff with it. And that's what they do for boats, so they don't develop holes and sink. So I don't know very much about that. I just know that it does exist. And you can do that to keep stuff from corroding in that nasty wet soil under there. So, okay, let's see. Chris KE0OG would also mention the Yaesu FTDX10, which is a great HF 6-meter rig for a similar price. Okay, they're doing this to themselves. The FTDX10 is a new radio. So is the 710. And they're getting a very confused product line when they have rigs for the same price that do the same thing. They're competing with themselves. So, yeah, you could look at that. I know Ham Radio Crash Course just did a video on that. I mean, Yaesu makes great radios. I've used Yaesu for years, but I went with the Icom because at the time it was kind of unique. And so, you know, and I had a good relationship with the Icom marketing person, whereas I don't know anybody at Yaesu or Kenwood. If they would like to get in touch with me, I'd be happy to talk with them. Dave, I have been using the 7300 for 2 years, just started as a ham, and I'm just shy of DXCC and contest routinely. Whoops. I have yet to find anything lacking on this rig. I keep working on antennas. Very good. Like I say, it is a wonderful radio. Now, I did use the 7610 for a while, which is a pretty significant step up. And it's designed as a contesting radio. And whoa, it's hard to give it up. But it wasn't mine, so I had to give it up. Okay, Glenn Martin, hello from far west Missouri. Good to see you. You're here every week. 16 degrees Fahrenheit, 51% relative humidity, and 0 QFT. Edward Cunningham, sorry, after 5 years, will there be any residual iron usable for a ground plane? Okay, again, I mentioned that cathodic erosion that can happen. You need to look at that because it might be very easy to put a system in. What you do is you put these different metals down in the ground, and you connect a wire to each and put a voltage on it. Not a very big voltage either, a few volts. And that can protect that iron under there. And the longer you're in there, the more it's protected. Now, you have that sacrificial anode, meaning that that anode will end up going away. So you have to put a new one in. So every so often you have to pull it out, check it, put it back, or put in a new one. Okay. Talk to people at a boating store about that, because that's where it's kind of used. Salt water is terribly corrosive. So they do this with metal boats to keep the iron in the boat from being attacked by the salt water. Okay, Optical Man Jeff, if you were building a 20-meter beam, can you bend the elements at right angles about halfway out to get a smaller turning radius? I would not. I would look at a hex beam, which has a smaller turning radius and has the bent. The hex beam's actually a 2-element beam. You can get hex beams that are 3-element beams. Okay, you can get them with an extra winding that's just sort of a dipole for 40 meters. But no, Jeff, I would model that antenna before doing anything like that, because I think you're going to find some very strange reactions to that. The other thing that you can do is go get an antenna like the A3S from Bushcraft, High Gain. It's all MFJ now. There are shortened Yagis that have elements that are shortened. They're loaded. Okay, so they work just as well, but you have narrower bandwidth. Okay, so it might only cover half the 20-meter band, but you can look at those. Give DX Engineering a call. They're real good about answering questions like that. Okay, if you seal something, it has to be filled with pressurized dry nitrogen. For example, if you're putting in a underground cable and it's a commercial installation, it will pressurize it. So if there's a leak, the gas goes out and the water does not come in. Okay, this is why we have pressurized water systems. And they try to maintain 40 to 60 pounds of water. If there's a pinhole leak in a joint somewhere, water goes out of the pipe. Now they don't like that, but better to go out, because if you have negative pressure in the pipe, it'll suck dirty water in. Okay, that's why we have pressurized water. When I was over in the Philippines, they have such a terrible problem. There's not really urban planning, and squatters are building everywhere, and people are just tapping into the water lines, and some people actually have pumps to pump the water out of the water line, and you've got negative pressure in the water line, and that's very dangerous from a public health point of view, especially when you have bad sanitation in the area. So it's kind of interesting. I got used to the water over there. I just drank the water out of the tap, and then when I came home, it was different water. It was Los Angeles water, and I got sick from the water. Oh, golly. Yeah, if you don't seal it, now, ideally, you've got your coax, which is rated for direct burial. Check that. And the connectors are above ground, okay? And if that is sealed, truly sealed, and there are no breaks in the seal, you won't get water in the coax. But if you were doing a professional installation, you would probably do the dry nitrogen thing. Harry Rundle adds $10 to the chat revenue and says it was a balmy 75 degrees here in Overlea, Maryland during the late afternoon. Thank you for all your good videos and this Q&A. From AC3EK. Harry, I believe, is also a patron, and I thank you very much for your continued and staunch support. It helps me keep bringing these to you. As I mentioned in a video, YouTube as a company is coping with the end of the pandemic. I'll say end of pandemic as opposed to whether COVID is still a threat. It's still a threat, but we're tired of the pandemic, so we act as though COVID is not a threat. When I went to the eye doctor yesterday, nobody in there was wearing a mask. So I think we're all just tired of the pandemic. So the problem was YouTube saw a big jump in revenue during the pandemic because people were stuck at home. So what'd they do? They watched YouTube. Now that they're out working again, YouTube's revenue is down, which means my revenue is down. It's about half what it was a year ago. About half. So, yeah. So I'm really relying on the patrons and on the people on PayPal and for tips and things like the chat revenue here, which comes through the YouTube revenue. Thank you very much. Eddie, K6SDW, when I plug in my antenna analyzer to antenna, the SW plot wave modulates. I live about 10 miles from a 50 kilowatt AM station at 1530 kilohertz. Is this what I'm seeing? At 10 miles, I would be a little surprised, but it is very possible. Okay, you almost have to put a filter in to keep the broadcast out. You can either use an antenna, like if you're putting up a dipole, but the end of the antenna pointed at the AM station. If you're using a mag loop, put the plane of the mag loop perpendicular to where the AM station is. If you've got a vertical, pull the radials away from the direction of the AM station and put them on the other side, because that will change the pattern of your vertical. You may not want to do that. Another thing you can do is get a filter. They are sold. Call DX Engineering and tell them your problem. I'm saying this because DX Engineering, the people they've got answering the phone are really, really, really good amateurs who are very into the hobby. And they run, Elecraft and stuff like that. I don't know. They've got the good stuff. So talk to them. They've got the knowledge. DX Engineering got into ham radio first via antennas, and they still sell everything you need for tower, put together your own beam, everything like that. They've got all those piece parts there, and they've, of course, expanded to cover the rest of it. I talked to the guy in charge of DX Engineering who owns it, Duffy, I think his name is Tim Duffy. And I asked him, I said, do you do just-in-time provisioning to keep the inventory costs down, or do you keep an inventory? And he says, absolutely I keep an inventory, because I want to be able to fulfill orders. And if that means I have to have a bigger inventory, so be it. Okay, and so, the rest of the world tries to do just-in-time. If you've ever gone to a grocery store, you're my age, you know that all the grocery stores used to have a back room, and if there wasn't something on the shelf, it might be in the back room, and somebody could go check for you. Grocery stores no longer have a back room. Product comes in the middle of the night and is placed straight on the shelf. And I bought some, was it these eye drops? No, I think it was these eye drops that I'm supposed to use after the antibiotic has done its work. And there was a thing, it was buy one, get the second one 50% off. But there was only one. And I've seen that over and over again. If you go to someplace like Walgreens, they seem to have one of everything. but not much of anything. So I bought some peanuts that they had a tremendous discount on if you bought two. And it looked like there was only one there, but I got down on my hands and knees and looked to the back of the shelf, and lo and behold, way back there was another jar. So that is what is called just-in-time provisioning. Every day the truck comes in, they bring their stuff in, they repopulate their shelves, and when you buy something, like when I bought this, an order goes out to the company for one more. And they keep bringing that stuff in just in time. Now, we have a problem here in this part of the country, in Colorado, in that there's a mountain pass up there on I-70. And if that mountain pass closes, there's really not a good way around it. In fact, that's one of the things that the state has been talking about. I-70 runs through Glenwood Canyon, and Glenwood Canyon does not like having an interstate in it. And so there will be mudslides. One time, a big giant rock the size of a car came down and hit a bridge deck and went straight through it. And so that road's constantly being closed, and there really is no alternate. You'd have to go 50, 60, 70 miles to the north or an equivalent to the south, and you'd have to do a lot of backtracking and all that sort of thing like that. So they're talking about putting in another highway that takes a different route but can be used as a backup in the event that I-70 is closed. But when it's closed, we don't get our stuff at the grocery store. You go to the grocery store and suddenly the produce aisles are empty. Okay, they may not have milk or eggs because there is no back room. But anyway, that's a long way around of saying DX Engineering does not follow the just-in-time philosophy. They keep an inventory. Okay. That was Harry, thank you. Okay, so we talked about Eddie's modulation problems. Yes, call DX Engineering and talk to them about a filter that you can put on that before that line gets to your radio and gets to your SWR meter. Okay, 50 kilowatt station is probably a Clear Channel station. Now there's Clear Channel, the company, and Clear Channel, the FCC rule. The FCC rule is that on every frequency during the day, because of the absorption and the delayer, a radio station talks to its customers via ground wave. And that goes out 50, 60 miles. Okay, so an AM station just covers a small chunk of area. And so across the country, there are many, many AM stations on that same frequency. But they all have to shut down at twilight because when the F layer is what's doing the propagating, an AM station can be heard anywhere in the country. And so they select one station on each frequency that is the so-called Clear Channel. So they will keep working 24 hours a day, and they own that frequency for the night. And then in the morning, when propagation changes, all these other stations come back on the air. So anyway, Boyd, KE0OG, greetings from Hillsborough, North Carolina. Thank you. Optical Man Jeff, KE0KRO, adds $15 to the chat revenue. We're up to $75 now. Thanks, Dave, for all your wisdom and goodwill. Love Thursday evenings. Well, thank you very much. Don Zed, happy to send it to you once done, Dave. Happy to send it to you once done. Okay. Josh Hayes. Oh, the presentation, yeah. The presentation, okay. Happy to send it to you, Josh Hayes. Would it be possible during some of your live streams to make HF radio contacts with your YouTube live stream viewers? Would it be possible? I think so. I'd have to hook up some audio between there. I think probably what would be better would be to do a net after the live stream or something like that, or the night before or something. I really do need to get up. What type of coax best suited for rotor loop? Get a flexible coax. Don't try LMR 400. Get one of the flexible versions of it because it's going to get turned a lot in the rotor loop. RG 213 is a good one. RG8X if you're not going a lot of power. But get a flexible coax because it's going to get flexed. Okay, it's something you're going to want to put on your maintenance list. Ham radio hobo, but nobody likes 75 and 80 meters. Some people really do, but I am not one of them. So some hams are too negative. It can be. Stephen Schotter, will the grounded mast function like a lightning rod and prevent lightning strikes on the mast? If it's a lightning rod, it's asking to get struck. And the answer is yes, if it gets struck, it may destroy that mast because that mast isn't that big. But if you've got the ground rod there, you're directing most of the energy right into the ground rather than along the coax. And if it is going along the coax, the lightning arrestor at your ground rod right outside your shack hopefully will catch the rest of that. Now, in the event of a direct strike, all bets are off. Okay. Direct strikes can be very unpredictable. Hello, Eric Sund. Hello from snowy Minnesota. 20 inches last night. KE0OG. Love your show. ICOM 7300 or 9700 if we can afford only one for a base station. I'm assuming you're a general. I'd go with the 7300. Now, if you really feel a need to do what are called weak signal modes, meaning non-FM on VHF, UHF, you might look at the Yaesu FT991 or the FTDX10. The 7300 and the 9700 look a lot like each other and are made a lot like each other, but you're going to spend as much on each one. If you're doing HF, I would use the 7300 as your basic station because the 9700 only does VHF, UHF, and microwave, and you got to pay extra for the microwave. So it's very strange the way they do it. You should do 6 meters, 2 meters, 1.25 meters, that's the 220 band, 70 centimeters, that's 440, and then a couple more of the microwave bands. It should do that, but it doesn't. It's quite selective on that. But the thing is, the 9700, you can do single sideband, you can do meteor bounce, you can do all of those kinds of things with that radio. But you can also, with the FT991A, get the A, don't get the one without the A. Okay, Rob, W9LOT, I have end fed hanging on side of house. I'm using 50-foot coax from antenna to side of home. 6 feet of coax. Should I place the arrestor or there and drop a ground wire down? Put the lightning arrestor on a ground rod where the coax enters the house. Now, if the coax enters the house high up, you're going to want to bring that coax to the ground, through the lightning arrestor, and then back into the house, okay? You don't want lightning in the house if there's any way you can avoid it. Also, it'll help with noise. Devesh Saroshi, I'm a new ham and want to get into DXing. What are the most desirable bands? Any one that works. You can get DXing on 160, on 80, 40 is actually pretty good for like getting into South Africa. 20 is your bread and butter DXing band. Okay. Now 17, 15, and 12 are opening up during the early afternoons and sometimes over a much longer period of time, and that's only going to get better over the next couple of years as we get up toward the peak of the sunspot cycle. 10 is very good, and don't forget 6. So try all of them. Now, again, 20 meters is your bread and butter DX band. The best way I have found to grab DX stations is during DX contests, because they're all on. A lot of the DX stations are avid contesters, and so they love running the contests, and they'd be happy to give you. And then they put all their stuff into Logbook of the World. So if you put your stuff into Logbook of the World, that's how you get your confirmation. Coastal Waves and Wires, greetings from Poland, from one OG to another. And this is Walt, SP/K4OGO. By the way, that's a somewhat original call. I was first licensed as KE0OG, but I dropped the Oscar to make the QSOs easier. Yes, I can understand that. Poland is very much in the news these days. A lot going on over there. Not good stuff. Sad stuff. I am, by the way, an avid Ukraine supporter. I just am. So anyway, 80 meter doublet versus ZS6 BKW antenna. If you had to use one, would you have a preference? Both could be 35 feet above the ground. I have heard good things about the ZS6 BKW, but I have never used one. An 80 meter doublet fed with ladder line and a 9-to-1 balun into the coax. Remember, 450 into 50 is a factor of 9, not 4. So that would, you can tune that with a wide range tuner on any band. Your normal internal tuner will not handle that unless it's a Ten-Tech. They've got wide range tuners built in, but we don't have them anymore. So, good evening from Oklahoma City. Shortwave listener who likes to listen to hams talking on HF because some tell good stories. I don't know if they care that SWLers listen. You know, we really should be aware of that. We don't know who is listening. Be a good ambassador for ham radio, and you know, keep your language civil, and don't get into controversies with others and so on. Unfortunately, the 50-50 split in this country affects everything, including ham radio, and just follow the amateur's code of good behavior, which is in every ARRL publication. Right here I've got, and I want to do a review on this, but I'm trying to figure out how, because I got the new handbook, and it is amazing. I've got the software version too, which has even more stuff in it than this enormous book. And the amateur's code, if I may read from what I think is page 1. The radio amateur is considerate, never knowingly operates in such a way as to lessen the pleasure of others. The radio amateur is loyal, offers loyalty, encouragement, and support to other amateurs, local clubs, and the American Radio Relay League, through which amateur radio in the United States is represented nationally and internationally. And it's true. There are 2 such organizations in Canada, but only one in the U.S. The radio amateur is progressive, with knowledge abreast of science, a well-built and efficient station, and operation above reproach. The radio amateur is friendly, slow and patient operating when requested, friendly advice and counsel to the beginner, kindly assistance, cooperation, and considerations for the interests of others. These are the hallmarks of the amateur spirit. The radio amateur is balanced. Radio is an avocation, it's a hobby, never interfering with duties owed to family, job, school, or community. The radio amateur is patriotic, station and skill always ready for service to country and community. And the original amateur's code was written by Paul M. Siegel, W9EEA, in 1928. So if you follow that code, amateur radio becomes a more wonderful hobby even than it is right now. Okay. Let's see, where are we? Shortwave listeners, yes. David Coles, hello from WA7UHZ in Houston. Love your videos. Thank you. Stephen Wood, KC1QEM. Any thoughts about a reasonably priced headset for contesting? Well, that depends on a lot of things. This headset right here is the one I use to produce videos. It's a professional headset, but it's only 99 bucks. The key thing about this headset, see, it says professional on it right there, for what it's worth. The model number is an MDR 7506. This has been the standard studio headset for decades. What it does, it's from 10 hertz up to like 20,000. And the keynote of this is accuracy. What you hear in here is what the signal, the electrical signal, actually is. So it's not designed to enhance sound or something like that. It's accurate. And that makes for a good headset for a radio. And I use this headset with mine. With my radio because I've got the hand mic. I've never replaced that. Now, Heil microphones, H-E-I-L. H-I-E-L? Heil microphones makes a number of headsets that have very comfortable pads, plus they can reduce noise. Some of the Bose headsets can actually reduce environmental noise, okay? And they have a microphone in them, and then what you use is a little foot switch for push to talk. And I've done that. On my Yaesu FT DX3000, there's a way you can set up the high, medium, and low frequencies in there. By high, medium, and low, I mean 800 hertz, 1800 hertz, 2800 hertz, okay? And you can adjust them so that you get the best sound quality out there, okay? Also, you want to adjust your compression according to the manual in here, and your audio levels and so on. I usually use my outdoor voice when I am operating. I'm using it right now. I wouldn't use this as my phone voice, but there's a difference in the timbre. It's just carries further, okay, which it's designed to do. Okay, so yeah, you can look at them. You can pay anything you want for a headset. Okay, now there are things called aviation headsets. Those are totally different technology. Don't get one of those to go with your radio. Get a radio amateur headset. and then make sure it goes with your radio. And then you're going to have to talk to somebody, a friend of yours, to get that audio set right in the settings in your radio so that you get the punch that you want to get. I remember I was using, it was the Ten-Tec 777 headset with this with the old Ten-Tec, and I discovered, to my horror, that my voice was very muffled. So when I went to the FTDX 3000, which does allow setting the different frequencies, I cranked that high frequency way up. And there's actually a special tool to help you do that. And suddenly I was getting all these reports of great audio. So, yeah, work with somebody so you get the thing set up right. But you're going to pay a few $100s. Just kind of start saving your money to do that. Let's look at the Heil website since we've got a minute here. The screen, and we'll go to HEIL sound. By the way, Bob Heil is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He invented some stuff for them. Here is Heil sound right here. Okay, and he makes microphones for the rock stars, which is how he ended up in there. But applications, let's see, products, microphones by use. No, this would be broadcast, percussion, no, we're not doing that, or instrumental. Vocal and wireless, capsules, podcasts. Anyway, let's go back one here and pick up this DX Engineering thing here. Okay, Heil Sound has got lots of headsets. The Pro 6 is a nice one. It's $169. Okay, so you aren't going to spend that much. You've got other kinds of headsets. Make sure it has the mic on it. And now these are aviation style headsets. Okay, and you got to, the microphone is of a different type. Okay, now the Heil Sound adapter I needed because I needed someplace to plug in the push to talk thing. Push to talk goes into one of these, the headset goes into the other, and they've got all kinds of stuff that you can, and you can pay anything you want for it here. Okay, anything you want, but they're the best. Now, Yaesu, I believe, has its own desk mic and stuff. So let's go back here and to normal view. Okay. So I'm a marine design engineer. We use zinc as the sacrificial anode in the marine environment. Now, you're in a situation, if you're putting chain link fence under there, the metal coated on the metal that is coated on the chain link fence is zinc. It's steel fencing with a zinc coating. So you want to preserve the zinc. And coastal waves and wires, if you got an idea for that, it'd be very interesting to see. Hi, Walt brother. Andy says, coastal waves. Hi, Andy. Brent, N4 BDW. Hi, Dave. You're looking well. I'm doing pretty good, actually. Fortunately, that eye infection got knocked down in a hurry. Had a fun evening going through all those tests. You can see what they did to my poor arm. Or look at a moment. Whoops, I'm sorry, I just lost the. Show again, Dave. Or look at a Moxon for 20 meters. Tommy Helton, KQ4AHR. Dave, when are you going to do a park on the air so we can contact you on the radio? I've made contact with Michael, KB9VBR, and Jason this week from Ham Radio 2.0 and Park KE0OG. There's a national park near us. There are, of course, a lot of other parks. There's the National Monument up in Grand Junction, outside of Grand Junction, actually outside of Fruita. I've got to do that. I don't. Terrence to Echo Zero, India Papa Kilo says, hi Dave, hope all is well with you. It is pretty good. Mark Engel, great show again. Thank you. Tom Bartman, can you explain why my 10-meter dipole can get DX all around the world, but I can't talk nor hear local contacts? It's very simple. Your 10-meter dipole is, just by virtue of being high enough that you don't guillotine yourself when you walk into it, okay, is high enough to get that half wavelength. Remember, 5 meters or 15 feet in the air gives you the optimum height, and you've got lobes going way out there. But the ground wave on 10 meters is extremely short. A tenth of a mile, something like that. It's very short. So what happens is, from the edge of the ground wave to where you get your first skip coming down, that zone in there is a cone of silence. And you're not going to pick people up in there. So you're not going to get your 10-meter locals. Now, if what you want to do is like a 10-meter repeater that's local, vertical. Vertical is the way to go. But if you've got a dipole up there, you're set to work DX. Okay, you're not set to work local contacts. A 40-meter dipole, you can work the local contacts. Yeah. Okay. So, Tom Bartman, KC3USL. Dale Wildman, is there a problem with grounding ham shack gears separate from antenna ground and not bonding the two grounds? Yes, there is a problem with that. That can create issues. The two ground rods are on opposite sides of the house. You should, Barry, do not go through the house. Go around the house. Bury a few inches underground a stranded copper number 6 wire going from one ground all the way to the other. Now note, since you're burying that, that's kind of acting like a ground itself, okay? And you want to also include your utility ground in that, okay? So that's what you definitely want to do. Now your ham shack is going to be grounded to house ground too, just through the fact that you've got some 3-wire plugs on your power supply. Do not defeat those. I don't care what Bob Heil says. Do not defeat a 3rd-wire ground. Don't. It's dangerous. Okay? Now, he's thinking in terms of putting on a show on a stage where you can get ground loops and so on. He's trying to break ground loops. And maybe for, the 2 hours of the performance, maybe, because there's other safety features in there, but not in a permanent setup under any circumstances. So yeah, connect them. Let's see, KK7BUC in Las Vegas. Ham shack will be grounded to house ground. Yes, and I do that from my ground. I run a bare copper wire over to the house ground, which is right under the meter. Okay, Dr. Pathos, hi Dave, thanks for the chat and your videos. Dave WS0D from Fort Collins, down to Florida, moving back soon. David AC3HT, thank you very much for $10. Added to the chat revenue, we are up to 100 now. Thanks, Dave, for your wonderful live stream and videos. Much respect to you, sir. Best wishes, AC3HT. Thank you very much. We are almost out of time. I don't have a good solution with concrete. I trashed several $100s worth of network cards in the 90s. to a similar problem. See if you've got a new for ground hiding in there somewhere. 3Henry21 adds $25 to the chat revenue. Feeding the chat kitty to say thanks for what you do for us new to the hobby. From Conrad KN6VMK. Thank you very much. I am trying to help as much as I can. I think, I try to make it for hams of all levels, and some of the videos are more technical than others. Sometimes it's just amateur extra stuff. Sometimes it's more general stuff. The ham I have in mind, the person that I think I'm talking to when I look into that little black dot right there, is a new general. And I want you to get on the air, enjoy yourself, find all the fascinating things that you can do in the hobby, feel like you have accomplished something, enjoy it. It's a hobby, right? You should enjoy it. It's also an opportunity, like the amateur code says, to contribute. And you, as a ham, become more and more technical as longer you're in the hobby. And you can help others understand science and how it really works, and nature and how it really works, and counter some of the non-scientific stuff that goes around in the world. Anyway, thank you very much, 3Henry21. I appreciate that. Conrad. We are out of time. Thank you so very much. I'll set up the live stream for next week now. And let's see. That will still be in... no, that will be in March. That will be in March 2nd. So that will be the day that we give away the February giveaway. And I can't remember if I've come up with one for March or not. I'll ask my assistant. He keeps track of those things. He'll be here tomorrow. So thank you all very much. The chat revenue helps me to pay my assistant, to get new things to test. Also helps me with ordinary expenses and so on. I really appreciate it. I had somebody say, "Oh, congratulations, you're retired." And I went, not really. I've got a YouTube channel with 120,000 subscribers, and that's a full-time job. So thank you all very much, and have a great week. And until we next meet, 73.